Right now we are with Adam Kimmel. He is the owner. Also, he is the host and creator of the show Resident Undead. Thanks first for letting us come, man. We're super excited. So,
well, first it's great seeing you go. Hey, Houston, Texas, okay? Yeah. Texas is in Madison right now. And Brodt, who's been here before, one time, you've already seen the changes. Yep. But for everyone you're gonna see, we're taking you right into ground zero to a lot of things that are going on here. But I'm just glad to have you here.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited. And there's a lot of interesting rooms in this building, and we could go all night talking about it. But let's pick out the ones that we think are special. And we're going to start with this room, right? So yes. What exactly is it?
So where we're going to start here, this is the laundry wing. And when I say laundry wing, a lot of people are going to be like, you know what, really? We have a lot of activity here. And the reason for that, I think, is you're looking at one spot that was 24/7 operation between 1940 and 1970. Women constantly, were cleaning. And you got to think about this, 70,000 square feet. This is a small city. So there was a huge operation. A lot of activities here. And then I'm also going to take you around the corner to where we believe a woman was buried in the floor. Now, I've only had the property for 2 years, all right? But within that 2 years, we get a lot of locals that come through, and I get it, these may be urban legends, but there have been more than one person come forward and say, have you ever heard the story about the woman buried in your floor at the turn of the century? Now, I have nothing documented on this, but I've had enough reliable sources come and say that there was an affair between a teacher and a teacher's aide. And when this was being constructed by the Women's Relief Corps around 1900 or so, this cement was being poured out here. He ended up killing her and burying her before that affair could become, known.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
We believe it's right here. I had a guy come in with dowsing rods who specializes in this stuff. Out of the blue goes, hey, I go to grave sites that are unmarked. I can tell you the gender, where the feet and the head are and all this stuff. This guy that came had no idea about this, but he came up to me during an event and said, do you want to know where that woman's buried in your basement? I'm like, came right to this room where we had suspected from the stories we'd heard, and he had said the woman's head was right here on this spot, and her feet would be right about where you're standing. So she's laying right here. When you go back outside, it's perfect cement the whole way. This is the only room that has a lot of slabs that are kind of torn and put together. So if it was going to happen and it was real, this would be the place I'd suspect. So the first time I filmed here was 2011. This was a place that was hard to get into. You had to know somebody who knew somebody to get in here. When I first came here, there was a sticky note that said Sarah's room on the door. There were toys scattered just like before. I assumed, without doing very little research at all, that clearly Sarah's room, toys, this must have belonged to a child.
Right.
So I, like many other investigators, tried to communicate with a spirit of a child. After the purchase and doing more homework, there's no record of a child ever dying here. The one person I talked to was saying that at the end of the health department, in the 70s or so, there was a woman in this area that had dementia. So she was 80 when she died, but she had that childlike mentality.
Oh, yeah.
And what we think is happening is literally this woman is communicating with us as if she's a child. I'll tell you what, we get tons of groups that come through here, a lot of public events. This is a hot spot, guaranteed EVP hits. Yeah. It's been far and few where I've come through here and nothing, Right. It's just, right. I think the spirits know this is one of your hubs.
Right.
That there is something possibly sinister or something that needs to stay in this closet enclosed. Now, when the door is open, I guess activity spikes up. From my style of investigating, if it works, and you open that door tonight, welcome to Ground Zero. This is the actual asylum of the Ohio Cottage, the top floor. Behind me is the rec room. As you can see, this wood we're standing on, over 100 years old. So turn of the century, 1940, this place was crowded with wicker wheelchairs. You had women that were very special needs. From reports of locals, I had a woman that was 80 years old, refused to come in the building. First thing she says to me, "Are you the boy that bought the nut house?" I'm thinking, well, if someone says that, you always say yes. Always say yes. But she was telling me stories. When she was an 8-year-old girl, she would come here with her mother who would do laundry. And she said when they would drive away, women would be waving out these windows up here. And she knew this place was crammed with women, just crammed up here. One story that really stuck with her, that really bothered me as well, was she would always close her eyes when she was with her mother. Like always hold onto her dress and just close her eyes while her mother did her work. Well, one day.
Did that light go off?
Yeah, it died.
Man, that thing's charged. That's weird. Not long at all. That thing lasts like 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah.
Well, to finish that story though, she heard a noise while she was holding her mother's dress. And like I said, she never opened her eyes, but for some reason, she opened her eyes when this happened. They were lined up, and she said it looked like chicken heads. Like all the women were up against the wall and their heads were bobbing like chickens, and they were in a straight line to get medicine. So those were, I think, some of the conditions, turn of the century, even leading into it. But even when you look at this place here, this was not something happy. You can just
You
tell.
can feel it. Yeah, we walked through last night and we just felt sadness and depression.
Yes.
It's like I was telling him, all eyes are on you. We're the new kids here. Who's the new guy? Who's the new guy?
I have noticed when we try to really openly connect with them and really stretch out to talk to them, we will get a lot of evidence. But there is something around the corner. Unfortunately, it's been drywalled over, but there was a message that creeped me out. Right on this wall, right here. Now, you see where they plastered it over, but underneath this, someone had taken a sharp object and kind of etched in here. It said, "I've been here for 10 years. I know I'm never getting out. I know I'm going to die here."
Steve had an experience, one of those experiences that almost make you wonder or ponder why we continue to do what we do.
But it's something you don't really think about until it happens to you, and then it just changes the way you look at investigating completely, and you know you're vulnerable, and you don't really think about that until it happens. And when I was here in May, something happened down here, and I haven't been back down here since, obviously, so.
It was a retired police officer that wanted to stay anonymous. He worked here in the 80s when the police department had the building. I just wanted to know what the upstairs looked like. And you know, with police officers, they're very descriptive with their stuff. So perfect person I could ask. I said, but there's always been a room that I've been very suspicious about, that something was just wrong. Like when we walk through these rooms, you'll see there's something different about this first room that just always felt like an operating room. They were doing something in this room. Well, he's like, first room on the right. He goes, yeah, that room with the operating table. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't know anything about this. This was brought later, right?
Right.
He said one day he was grabbing files and he stood right in the doorway there and for 10 minutes stared right here. And he said there was a table similar, but not alike. It had the metal arm bars that went out like this. And instead of your leather couplings, it was actually another metal piece that went around, and then you had a bolt to tighten it. He stared at that for 10 minutes, trying to wrap his head around what he was looking at. His conclusion was, this is some kind of torture device. What's really interesting is after he discovered this up here, I don't know if word got out, he might have talked to somebody else, within 2 weeks, that table vanished. And here's where it comes into dark research. Did we do the wrong thing by bringing this up here? Are we immortalizing the evil? There is something very suspicious about this room, and our attention was caught to these marks here. Because for the longest time, if you look in these rooms, I didn't know how you'd fit a bed in here. You can see where the wood is worn away in this direction. So you had a metal rod going right here, and right here. I'm just gonna be raw and real on this. Either you have a patient in these beds shaking, right? And it's very, very strong and it's shaking that bed back and forth. Or there were things going on here. You know, someone may have been taking advantage of them. And here's the thing, we have caught EVPs saying that, you know, yelling, "He raped me." Why the top floor? And I'm thinking, why not? If you wanted to have a functional facility, you would hide the unwanteds up on this very top floor, because then you have a functioning building in the basement, first and second. No one would ever know. You know, in conclusion, you're in a hotbed. I can just, even like as I'm walking through this with you guys, I can feel the chills changing back and forth. They're curious, you know. They do love to be documented. We've shared their story with the world, but it's always interesting what's going to come through, though. You may learn something very, very disturbing. You know, maybe they picked tonight to talk about it. So.
Well, and that's what I told him too. I said, you know, I've been here, this is my 4th trip out here now, and every time out here it's different.
Yes,
it's different.
always changes.
Well, I hope with the 2 nights that we're here, we can try to uncover some things that maybe you didn't know, and
I love it.
maybe bring some closure to some of those questions you have. So, thanks for having us, man. Again,
Absolutely.
Cannot wait.
Absolutely.
All right, let's do this.